Verse 197. The visible world is likened to the hare's horns, as long as all beings go on discriminating. Those who discriminate are deluded, just like a deer running after a mirage. So the hare's horns don't exist. So the implication in this verse is that we're chasing after things that don't exist. Things that are the product of imagination. And imagination in this case is described as discriminating. We discriminate things. There's the visual field, and within that we see things, we identify things, we identify one thing as distinct from another. Some of these things that we discriminate, that we identify as distinct, might be regarded as pleasant, some as unpleasant, some as indifferent. And in this way, those things that we distinguish, that we discriminate, are imbued with an identity. And so we become like deers running after mirages. In traditional Buddhism, something called samatha meditation is encouraged, and this is generally understood as quietening the mind. This is all well and good up to a point, but the significant point is, as was spelled out in the previous verse, when we are told that the world is to be regarded as quiescent. It isn't the mind that is to be tamed, but our relationship with the world. It's the world that has to be tamed. It's our relationship with the world. It's this tendency to discriminate that we need to step back from. We're doing it all the time. These discriminations that we make, we regard as real. We say, this is how the world is. It's made up of this, it's made up of that. These things are going on within it. These conditions are the result of these conditions. Things come and go. It's always been there. I was born into it, and at some point I'll leave it. This is what we take as reality. How can you argue with that? Well, we must argue with it. We must look into it. This is what we were doing in the last few verses. We stop thinking of it as this stage into which beings come and go. We stop subscribing to the backstory of the world out there. I was having a little chat about this sort of stuff with somebody I know not so long ago, and he's a very intelligent fellow, a university lecturer in fact, and I think he's a little bit, what's the word, indignant, even outraged at the implications of some of what I'm saying, although he's quite intrigued. And we're having a drink, and we came out from the pub, and it was night time, and then he said, so now the moon and the stars have suddenly appeared. And he said it with a somewhat ironic tone, and I said, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, because that's what happened. the moon and the stars and all the houses outside suddenly appeared. That's what happened. But we give such weight to the backstory that it's always been there, that what's actually happened seems quite preposterous, nonsensical. The idea that the whole night sky suddenly came into existence at that moment, even though that's what happened, seems quite ludicrous, preposterous, risible. Now, what's the point in trying to quieten the mind when you still subscribe to the backstory, when you still continue to discriminate? The teaching is clearly here in the Lankavatara Sutra. Yet, how many Buddhists apply it? They get on with their meditation, their precepts, their lifestyle. So the world is to be regarded as quiescent. And in this way, we come back to what I call our sense of being. In the previous video, I talked about coming back to the essential awareness that is aware of all this. This is what underpins everything. But we can also describe it as a sense of being. I think we have this as children. But we have to learn to step out of it. We have to learn to step out into the backstory, into conventional understanding, into conditioning. Okay, and once we've done that, as spiritual practitioners, as enlightenment practitioners, we can step back. We can now come back to our sense of being. Otherwise, as verse 198 says, by clinging to discrimination, discrimination goes on. When the cause of discrimination is put away, one is disengaged therefrom. And the cause of discrimination is the belief in the mirage. The mirage is real, but what it represents isn't. It's a relationship with the world, with the visual world, which is one of discrimination. If we can just understand it as a visual panorama, and that's all, and not let our attention be continually diverted through the sense of sight, then perhaps it's easier to get some feeling for what I describe as a sense of being. Verse 199 says, as in a mirage in the air, the thought of water is cherished where there is no water. So things are seen by the ignorant otherwise than by the wise. So we scamper after the mirage. We siphon off our own sense of being and give reality to what is in the mirage. The thought of water is cherished. And this is what it is. It's not what's out there that we cherish. It's our ideas, our thoughts about what is out there that we cherish. A classic example is the fetish. the sexual fetish even. If you don't share somebody's fetish, you can see the absurdity of it. Some people have a fetish for feet, a sexual fetish for feet. If you don't have this fetish, then it seems laughable, peculiar, ridiculous. However, if you do have this fetish, then like any other fetish, it's very powerful. It's very powerful. So another way of understanding this is that we fetishize the world. We've all got the different aspects of it that we give reality to. That we make objects of desire, that we get a buzz from. When we think ours are the ones which are significant. I'm not a foot fetishist myself, but I imagine if you are one, you probably think that other people are missing out somewhat. People obviously aren't understanding the erotic potential of feet. And so we all develop our own little world whereby we believe we know what's the real deal. Whereas in reality, we're just living in our own little microcosm of delusion. We've discriminated the hare's horns, and we've not only discriminated them, we've fetishized them. We've fetishized them. So this harmless word, cherish, perhaps we could replace by fetishized. The thought of water is fetishized where there is no water. So things are seen by the ignorant otherwise than by the wise. The thing about this fetish is it doesn't enrich, it diminishes. It is laughable, it is ridiculous, it is silly. And the wise go beyond this.